All right. Why would I come to speak to you through the interweb instead of speaking to you face to face? Why is communicating to you this way different than if I were to say it to your face? What's different about it? What's different about children chirping each other over AIM or Facebook Messenger? Why would I come to speak to you through the internet? It's a good question to ask. It's a question that I ask myself. I wager to bet that it has something to do with the fact that it's kind of a hard world to openly speak one's mind in without either being shut down or shamed or told that you are wrong or told that you're a bad person. Anyways, so that's my opening thought. But I'm back. The time presented itself, and I'm here because I was guided to be here. I'm at a point where the best thing that I can do, the best day I can have, is I can wake up and I can pray to be aligned with the will of God and do whatever that takes me to. And this is part of that. I think God's will is what entices me to seek truth and to share truth. And in the world we live in today, I think the best way to go about it is to say that the truth that I share is my truth. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it. A lot of this is opinion. Something I've been writing about recently, which is going to be included in the book, is whether or not there exists universal truth, aka truth that applies to all of us, and how do we distinguish universal truth from personal truth, or, my personal story? How is that distinguished? I have an attitude of gratitude. It's a beautiful day. I woke up this morning and it's pretty hard not to notice on a daily basis how wacky things are. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone. We're in a place where we're like, oh, it's crazy what's going on. The wars are starting. The wars are being perpetuated. They've been going on forever. I think people are starting to wake up to the idea that maybe wars are inevitable and maybe they have to do with religion or God, spirituality. So, the truth. A friend sent me this quote this morning. Be patient towards all that is unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves like locked rooms, like books written in a foreign tongue. This was written by Rainer Maria Rilke in Letters to a Young Poet, which is a wonderful little collection of 7 letters. I've read it before. Her sending me this definitely caused me to want to read it again, so that's going to end up happening sometime. Continued. Do not now strive to uncover answers. They cannot be given to you because you have not been able to live them. And what matters is to live everything. Live the questions for now. Perhaps then you will gradually, without noticing it, live your way into the answer. I think that is beautiful. And I think that for the most of my life, I spent my time living the questions. And it's very hard to stray from that because of my beliefs how the human mind works when it comes to programming. It's like people talk about people being stuck in their ways and not being able to change. Like, how many people I've come across who don't believe that people ever change? I think it's not that people don't ever change. I think it's that many people don't ever change because most people don't think it's possible. So anyways, I have been living the questions for most of my life. And I have begun to start living the answers. And that's what this exploratory... I'm putting out my feelers, is what I said to God. I said, God, I'm putting out my feelers. This is an example of that. Me sharing through this, sharing through writing, anything, I guess, where I'm being creative or thinking outside of the box, in comparison to consuming, scrolling through Reddit or scrolling through YouTube, blah, 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 blah. So I'm living the answers now. And I think that's not an easy thing to do, because if you're living the question, or living the questions, what you're focused on is the missing piece, which is the answers. But if you're living the answers, you are living the missing piece. You are becoming the missing piece. And that's scary. It is scary. But it's like, suck it up is how it feels to me. I have these moments where I notice that I look to other people for answers as if these other people have answers. The other people that I look to have lived their own answers, many of them. There are many people that I know who are living questions constantly. And the people who are constantly living questions are the ones who are seeking answers from others, because they aren't living them themselves. Even if someone tells you of their answer, if they tell you a story of their answer, you can't comprehend it because you haven't lived it. It's not possible. It can be imagined, but something imagined versus something lived through is different. She followed up sending that to me with, I think this is a quote from a writer named Kate Bowler, who I think is a religious writer, a Christian writer. I don't know what exactly she did, but anyways, this friend introduced me to Kate Bowler's Lent series on Substack. She's been posting something daily for 40 days, and this is what she posted and sent to me. Bless you living inside this unresolved, unfinished middle. And when the questions feel heavy, may you find that they are not empty, but rooms where God is already waiting. I think that is beautiful. That's one of those things that I've read. I read that and I said to myself, I could have written that. Part of me wishes that I did write that, but it's like, that's what I'm talking about here. So, I guess connecting to what I just said, kind of, it's as if this person has shared one of her lived answers, and because I'm living an answer of a similar nature, I can say to myself, I could have written that. I didn't, but I could have, and that's fine. I'm writing my own things. Okay, so let's get into the meat of today, which is story time. Story time. I'm polishing my storytelling practice. I'd love to be a good storyteller. I think I am. Anyways, okay. So, I am in a Master's of Social Work program. It's a program created by the university. It's a program curated by all of the academic officials over the years, in conjunction with the boards of social work in the states in North Carolina here. I'm in this school program. I'm learning from professors, some professors who are very, very adamant about following the rules. In becoming a professional social worker, when you work with a license granted to you by the state, you're agreeing to work under that state's board of code of ethics, which more or less, a code of ethics that you're bound to is a set of rules, and in terms of ethics, it's a set of rules molded around what is right and wrong, and what is acceptable, what is unacceptable when it comes to social work practice. I have other professors in this school program who will write timelines of the evolution of social work, of the evolutions of psychology, all of these great people. This professor will put the timeline on the board, go through each version, kind of say, in this year when this person posed such and such as a problem, they identified this area of life as being the reason for the problem, or the cause. And they created a version of practice, of social work practice, where they addressed that certain problem by addressing the specific cause. And each year, each different basis of social work, like behavioral social work, spiritual social work. You know, some social workers or psychologists believed that, you know, a lack of God in your life is the problem, or the problem is that you behave in a certain way and you don't understand that you're doing it. Bless me. There is Anyways, okay. Getting to the point. So, written out all of these on the board. And after sharing all of them, he asks the class, she asks the class, what do all of these have in common? Some students pipe up and they say, oh, well, they all have an identified problem. They all have identified solutions. What I said is that they're all tied together in some way or another. It's like as social work evolved, humanity fell short in certain areas, so certain things became more problematic than others. But what the professor said was, yeah, those are valid points, but the point that I was trying to make is that all of these things were made up. So yeah, they were made up by people with what we have to work with as people, which is primarily language. So it's beautiful when all of this stuff ties together. But the theme of this video specifically is a collection of things not appearing what they seem. Sometimes it's easy to accuse a person of something, and what's actually happening is that you are the person doing what you're accusing the other person of doing, and you don't even notice it. Or maybe part of you notices it, maybe your subconscious notices it, and you can't accept it. And when that happens, you become bent out of shape, and you become angry, and, the idea of projecting, you project that anger onto the other person. It's like, the example I will give is the story that I'm telling, and the story that I'm telling has to do with exactly the point that professor was trying to make, was that this is all made up. Everything's made up. Like, one psychologist said, this is the problem, here's the solution, and how many years later are we sitting here with problems of all sorts? There is no solution, singly solution. There is no single solution to the intricacy of life, which another one of my friends said last week on the phone. You can walk through the woods and see the chaos everywhere. Everything is chaotic. Like, yeah, we live in a chaotic world. There's chaos everywhere. Go walk through the woods and look at the chaos of all of the individual yet collective life forms trying to make it. Like the small plants at the bottom of the forest floor breaking out with with all of the fungus that's propagated by the decaying matter of animals and plants. Like, it's all beautifully chaotic. So, I'm in this program. I'm graduating. It's been a 2-year program. I'm graduating in May, coming up soon. I am in the job market. I'm interviewing employers. I'm telling employers how I feel about where I am. I'm telling employers about what I believe that I have to offer. And I'm interviewing employers to figure out what they have to offer to me. Because the employer is the setter of the structure. The employer is the one who calls the shots, makes the rules. The employer is the one that you're bound by, basically. But as the employee, You create value. You know, you're doing something and you're being paid for it. Many of the positions nowadays where you're an employee, like think of working at Lowe's or something. You get paid $14 an hour to drive around forklifts and like organize shelves, you know, deal with pissed off people who can't find what they're looking for. You get paid $14 an hour to bag groceries. You walk out of the door with maybe $60 to your name for the day after tax. You know, not enough money to cover your food and gas for the day to get to your job. Everyone's talking about the same stuff. There are so many people out there talking about how whacked out everything is. So many people on the internet talking about their beliefs that the social contract is broken and that, you know, and there's a lot of evidence for that stuff. I mean, it's like as time goes on and the wealth gap divides, as the contrast increases in the world we live in, it's not only the wealth gap in terms of like assets or time, or it's the wealth gap in literally every way. It's the wealth gap in such a way where, you know, those jobs where you're bagging groceries or whatever, they're not going up in tandem with the super high paying fintech jobs or business owners who are making millions and millions of dollars building data centers to basically support the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world in essentially siphoning our life force as a population, just sucking everything from us. And it's like, if I were milk in a glass and Mark Zuckerberg or all of these companies, you know, the Apple iPhone, if all of these things were the straw and they're sucking me through the straw, and I know it's happening, I'm yielding to it. I mean, I'm milk, so I can't do much about it, but it's like, in that scenario, I guess, but do you, as an individual human being, believe that you have any agency anymore? Do you want to be sucked through the straw? Do you want your life force and your soul, your heart, everything that you hold dear in this life? Are you bored? Are you tired of everything? Continuing with the story. So, I work at a outpatient, state-funded, nonprofit clinic, where primarily patients who have Medicaid, primarily patients who experience poverty or homelessness, basically patients who are stuck between many rocks and many hard places, whether by their own doing or not. That's beside the point. It's an unpaid internship. I was told by the supervisor that it's a universal truth, that that's the way it goes. It's the way it went for her. It's the way it goes for all of the other students at the university that I go to. I responded with, it's not the way for everyone, because I know a number of people who are working paid internships. Someone's being paid $18 an hour to work at the local food bank, or the school's local food bank. It's strange. It's like it's like in the logical sense, like you would think the one internship that would not pay is the one that's like donating food to charity. It's kind of strange. I don't know. It's like mine doesn't pay. Anyways, so I go into this a couple times a week. I love it. I make a good time of it. I present myself as ready to learn. There's a large presence of like the hierarchical superiority thing. And it makes sense because when you're in the position of the unpaid intern, 2 years later you've put in your 2,000 hours or whatever of clinical work, and the next intern comes in. It's like you want to feel like you have some more say over that person, because you put in the work. You deserve to be above them in a way. That's the vibe that's given off in a lot of workplaces, and it's just the way it is. I mean, it's portrayed in so many things. Like, look at The Office, the TV show, for example. It's like Michael Scott is the asshat, and like, it's people love that show because it's real. My friend worked at a Jersey Mike's, and his first manager was someone who got let out of jail, and he sued the court or something for being wrongfully imprisoned, and he was awarded like $1.5 million or something, and he spent it in like the course of like a year. Anyway, so this was my friend's original manager at Jersey Mike's, and then they ran the store. There are always asshats who work at these places, like people who come in and like, my friend said one time a woman who was hired there told him to take the trash out because she couldn't do it because she's a woman. She was working at Jersey Mike's and refused to take the trash out. They're just people who don't want to try, whatever it is. And it's like, I've been one of those people before. I've been the type of person who would be working the unpaid internship and say, I'm not being paid, so I'm not going to try because I'm not getting anything out of it, because I'm in the frame of mind where I can only think that getting money out of something is the only way to get value out of something, which is just, that's how the puppet masters pulling the strings want us to think. It's not very hard to see. But back to the story. This guy was replaced. He was demoted because he was definitely, he was abusing his position of power. Not shocking. We hypothesized that the dude actually did do what he ended up in jail for. They just couldn't prove it, and he ran with that. Also not surprising, but that shows the type of person he was. So he's going to abuse that place of power. He was demoted. The next manager who was hired was fresh out of prison with an ankle monitor on, and he was an asshat. My friend knows he gets paid $16 an hour or whatever. He does the job. He goes in, he busts his ass, he makes 100 sandwiches in an hour for catering boxes, whatever it might be. And this new manager comes in with the ankle monitor on, and he's just kind of like fluffing off, like he goes into the back. He's avoidant. Nothing makes sense. So, yeah, Michael Scott embodies like the reality of many. It doesn't mean you're a better worker to be a manager. It almost seems to equate to you're better at bullshitting, and being a snake. And I guess you got to put up with the hiring and stuff, but so yeah, there's that structure where I work. And I'm not going to lie and pretend as if not being paid a penny for what I'm doing and like paying to drive there and, all of this stuff doesn't cause me to think to myself like, I don't know, it's almost relieving because I don't have anything to lose, really, when it comes to this. Like, all I have is opportunity to gain when it comes to experience, knowledge, and realistically, the biggest opportunity that I have at this place is to put myself out there in a willingness to challenge the status quo, which is what is just accepted. It's like, back to the code of ethics. Like, these are status quo things. They're accepted amongst the community. And part of what's so hard about this stuff is that once it's accepted and everyone's reveling in it, you know, things might not be working great. There might not be a ton of success occurring. But it doesn't matter because you're following the rules. So who cares? That's the attitude I see. It's like people want to believe so greatly that the rules are just the end-all be-all. That people want to believe that the rules and the guidelines are the answers. And yes, rules and guidelines are there for a reason. Yes, rules and guidelines are there due to trial and error. But that being a point, that they are there due to trial and error, does not mean that we end up in a place where the rules are ever set permanently. They are ever evolving. Everything is ever evolving. So, the crux of the story, my inner climber coming out, the crux of the story, the climax is that I'm at my internship. We're in group supervision, and group supervision might be, granted, it might not have been the best place to get into a challenge, a conversation of which the nature was to challenge like the status quo. I think group supervision is designed more to but then again, it's like I believe that what I was talking about was within the bounds of group supervision. I had an individual session with a patient, and the patient expressed. The patient had an oopsie, and this is for people who struggle with substance use. The patient had an oopsie. The patient's been going through stuff. The patient used substances and relapsed. And we found out, the drug screen failed, and the patient's course of treatment was adjusted. And I'm speaking to the patient and the individual and in the session, and the patient's saying, I understand that I came to this place to seek help. I came to this place of my own volition. I came to this place, and this place presented me with guidelines and rules. And they were, this patient regarded them as rules because when you break a rule, there are implications to doing that. I personally think the better word is that there are consequences to breaking rules. So, I'm sitting here with this patient who's working their way through living the answers. They're beginning to live the answers to their questions. These questions life presents with them, and they're beginning to live the answers, and they're beginning to sit down in front of a stranger and say to the stranger, hey, I'm here because I chose to be here. this happened because of whatever reason. It felt natural. I'm still trying to grasp an understanding of what it meant to me. I don't know if I'll be able to use this substance in the future. I'm figuring it out. But I agreed to these rules. And I broke the rules. And I accept that there are consequences to those rules. And I'm sharing this because I saw it as a win for this person. I saw this as, wow, this person is taking accountability. And this person might feel guilty about what they did. This person's trying to figure out what that means to them. Maybe there's the potential that this gets converted into shame. And in therapy talk, guilt is where you know you did something wrong, and you know that when you did something, it was not the right thing to do, but you did it anyways. So you feel guilty. And then shame is apparently when you do not process that guilt, and you embody it as who you are, or you accept it as who you are, and you say, I'm just the person who messes up. Like, shame in therapy talk, at least, maybe not so much in my belief, is oftentimes the result of a victim mindset, where you say, oh, I'm the victim of my own choices, like, this is just who I am. It's the result of a person who lives their life believing that they have no agency, that they have no ability to change. So, this person sitting across from me basically more or less telling me that they do believe that they can change. And this is an exhibition of them changing, because here they are sitting and admitting to a cause of something that they're putting up with. So, I'm sharing this with the group because I thought, wow, this was a cool thing to experience. What do you all think? Where should we take it from here? And the word consequence comes out of my mouth, and I get thrown into a chamber of wow, you cannot use the word consequence, because so many people who are struggling with this, attribute punishment to that. And it's like, okay, well, the reality of people who are abusing drugs is that they're punishing themselves by choosing to use drugs. An addiction is not that simple. I am not trying to say that these people are not under a spell and that their brain is not hijacked. Addiction is the hijacking of your brain, and you will do whatever. When I was in active addiction, my parents asked me, why are you doing what you're doing? And I said to them, I have no idea, because I did not have any idea why I was doing what I was doing. I told them that it feels like I have a joystick stuck in the top of my head and something else is controlling me. Basically, in other words, I told my parents that I felt possessed. Maybe maybe you can translate addiction to being possessed. I think that works well. Anyways, so they say, okay, well, you should have reframed that for him. Reframed that thought. And I said, what do you mean by reframing it? Like, he came out and said that he more or less said, I created consequences that I have to deal with, and I'm willing to deal with them because I know that that's how life works, is what he said. And I said, what do you mean reframe that? Like, is that not a healthy way for him to think? And they said, oh, well, go beneath what he's talking about. And I said, okay, well, maybe he feels guilty about it. And they said, okay, well, what's beneath that? Shame? Is there shame beneath that? And I said, okay, maybe. There might be. Is that something that I can remove? Probably not. And in another part of what I shared is that he expressed that he's having trouble being patient because he understands that this stuff isn't all going to manifest into his life all at once. He sees himself as someone who's changed a lot over the span of about 2 years, which is about the time when he came to seek help. And the reality of this situation is that I'm sitting in a room with my superiors who, when it came down to it, this is what happened. I'm sitting there, I'm respectfully speaking to them. I'm letting these people speak their minds. I'm letting these people try to explain what they mean to me. And by saying that, I'm saying I was not interjecting them, or I was not cutting them off. Like, there were times where I would say, I disagree or something. I remember the supervisor said something about the difference between guilt and shame. And I said, okay, so if I do something that I know was wrong, even when I knew that it was wrong in the moment, and I feel ashamed of it, what is that? And she said, guilt. And I said, that's strange. Why is it that I feel ashamed? Why is the word shame contained within the feeling, if it doesn't have anything to do with shame? And I mean, this is just personal stuff. Like, I know I'm not the only one who would say that if I did something wrong, I would feel ashamed of it. I would feel guilty too. I mean, it works both ways. And I said I disagree with your stance on the difference between the words, and I think that this is a semantics thing. And the supervisor said, this is not a semantics thing. And I said, okay, well, I disagree. And a couple of other people chimed in. Most people were quiet. I mean, there's one person there who is respectful of me in speaking my mind. I appreciate her, and she could tell clearly that I was just, like, serious about it. I wasn't upset. I mean, I was energized because I was like, basically what I was feeling in the moment was that I was trying to speak my mind and speak my opinion back to what my professor taught us about how this stuff is all made up. It's like this stuff is ever evolving. There is no end-all be-all recipe, and basically what I felt is that I was being dictated to that this is the end-all be-all recipe, and that we don't even have time or care to hear what you're saying, because I wasn't allowed to say what I was saying. I said a number of things. I was cut off. Probably 75% of the things that came out of my mouth, I was cut off, and I was just stopped speaking. I didn't try to speak over the person. I was cut off, and I just kind of let them do it. And then it so ended up that the supervisor started getting visibly upset. I did not see this coming at all, because my tone was not aggressive. I was speaking assertively, but I was not aggressive in the slightest. I was sitting back in my chair. I was sitting up, looking at them, making eye contact, speaking my mind, not telling them that they were wrong. I was telling them, this is my experience, and this is why I think it matters, is basically what I was saying. I wasn't able to make that point. I was told no. I was cut off. I was shut down. And then the supervisor stood up and said, I can't do this right now. I'm not going to... The supervisor said something along the lines of, there are things that I will not budge on, etc. I am not doing this right now. This is not all about you, Calvin. Your experience does not apply to everyone. And it's strange because I never once made it seem as if it was all about me. I never once said that I believed that my experience applies to everyone. The point that I was trying to make is that my experience worked for me. I'm working as an intern in a clinic which is to help people who struggle with addiction. I have a lot of experience in my personal life in dealing with it. I haven't drank alcohol in over 6 years. I quit smoking weed over 3 years ago. I quit using nicotine over 3 years ago. I have vices in my life. One of the bigger vices in my life over the past few years, and it was a vice before any of the drugs, before any of the substances, and that was porn and lust. That's been one of the biggest vices in my life. Probably the first vice that I ever had. I mean, maybe not, but the first serious vice, the first addictive vice. So anyways, the purpose of my story is that I'm saying to these people, this is my experience, and the point I was trying to make is that reframing might be important in this scenario, but I was trying to make the point that you can reframe your understanding of a word. For example, when I grew up as a kid, the consequences made me feel sick. The consequences always make me feel sick because what it means is that when I do something wrong or I do something that has a negative consequence, in the end, I'm the one who has to put up with it. No one else takes on my own consequences. They just pile up. So, as a kid, as someone who was not thinking like an adult, I thought of the consequences as punishment, which is back to what these people were saying to me. And I said, okay, so is it possible to think of consequences in terms of personal accountability? Which, I have to say that the example that I shared with them of the patient in the session with me is what he was doing. That's what he was communicating to me, was that he was viewing consequence in terms of his own accountability. He was viewing consequence as the results of his own actions. He was not viewing consequence as something that the clinic was punishing him with. He did not, and it's strange because that's what all of these professionals in this setting, all of the other staff members jumped to. And I never once made it sound at all like that. So they all latched on to this one assumption, and they said, no, you're not allowed to speak. The supervisor walked out of the room and just left. Nothing happened. And that's what wound me up. I mean, I felt wound up after that. I was like, wow, I'm trying to share an opinion with the intention of the whole point of supervision in a group is to evolve our practice. And it's group think. It's the same way that the IOP groups work for the patients. It's the same idea. It's group think. It's bouncing ideas off of one another. It's seeing what works. But me being the intern, maybe this was it, maybe it wasn't. I wasn't credible enough. The person told me that I just need to sit back and listen for once, as if I don't do that. As if I don't receive feedback from them on a daily basis whenever I'm there, and I internalize their feedback, and I put it into effect. Not all of it, but when it comes to like the practices of the clinic and what's allowed and what's not allowed, yeah. Like how they write their notes, etc. I listen. I'm always learning to listen better, but as I said earlier, when they were sharing what they were saying, I was listening. I didn't cut them off. There may have been, it's like, it's hard when you're having a conversation with someone and like you will if you say I disagree to something, can it be hard to not cut someone off if they keep going? Like if they just don't give you a window to respond? That's what I felt like. I felt like they kept going because it was 4 of them against me alone. It wasn't just one person that I was talking to face to face. This was Knights of the Round Table style. Like, I'm just getting grilled by 4 people. I wasn't given chances to speak. So, like, when the guilt shame comparison came up, like, I may have cut her off by saying I disagree, but that's all I said. I didn't, like, go into a tangent there. I said it to plant the I disagree to see if the person would give me a chance to say why. So anyways, I come out of that situation feeling very defeated, and I told the person, I have no hard feelings against you. I would like to discuss this because realistically, like, I never got my point across. And if I'm in a place where I'm not willing to even be heard or considered, it's not the place for me. And that's the theme of today. The theme of today is I plan to go where I'm appreciated. And I am appreciated there, but that is a major requirement for me, is that I'm allowed to speak my mind, especially in a setting where we're sitting around designed to talk to each other. That's what it's put there for. Also, for the first, this is an hour meeting. It's group supervision. Everyone kind of gets to share what they're like struggling with or what they've noticed with their patients, and it's groupthink. I didn't speak for the first 35 minutes or the first 40 minutes. It was everyone else talking. So, and then what kind of irked me after is the one person in the clinic who really seems to respect me and allow me to speak my mind. The supervisor came back in and said, I'm not going to argue. And I said, I don't believe that we were arguing. I believe that we were having a conversation. I said I disagreed with you. I wasn't like bickering with you back and forth. I was just trying to speak my mind. And I said, did it come across as arguing to you? And she said, yeah, it did. And I said, like anyone else? And this other person said to me, yeah, it did come across as arguing. And I was like, interesting. Because I was just having a conversation. And the reality of it is that it came across as an argument to them because they didn't want to hear what I was saying. And they didn't let me. I had every right to speak my mind as they did in the group. I don't care about the seniority. It doesn't matter. Like, so here comes the truck. Okay, cool. He was able to drive around me. I was worried for a second that I was gonna have to move. Nope. So yeah, I come here to answer my opening question. I come here to speak where I am able to reach an audience that might want to listen to what I have to say. You get to choose. Maybe something strikes you as important. Maybe you can relate to the way that I feel. Maybe it fires you up inside. Maybe you're tired of this dynamic. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be an uncommon dynamic. I don't believe it's the life I'm supposed to live. So I'm gonna do whatever it takes to not lead that sort of life. And if it comes down to me not being able to work in a place like that, I will consider myself blessed, and I will thank God. Because I'm on this earth to serve God. And I guess if I had to pick out a universal truth that I believe in, the universal truth is that all of this stuff is ever evolving. We're figuring this out as we go. So I'm not going to sit in a place where they say this is the only way to think about it. Never. I'm not going to be in a place where this is the only way to think about it. It's way windier than I thought it would be. But it's beautiful. Anyways, if you appreciated any of what I said, I would appreciate you smashing that like button and subscribing. Shoot some comments down below if you have any questions or if you have any input. I mean, this stuff is fun to think about, and it's not so much even fun as inevitable. It's like these things come up. If you have enough of a backbone to stand up for yourself, these things come up. Calvin over and out. Peace.